Welcome to the Beyond 3D podcast, where we explore all things 3D and the important role that 3D data plays throughout the manufacturing process, driving decisions throughout a product's lifecycle. Here, we talk with industry analysts, business owners, developers, and industry influencers, and hear real stories that you can relate to and learn from, and know which trends and technologies apply to your business. So join us as we go beyond 3D. Welcome everyone to a new episode of Beyond 3D. Today's episode is very special as we are celebrating International Women in Engineering Day. And today we are here with two women who work at TechSoft 3D, Cour Scalf-Crickenberger and Anca Cimpoaca, who are, and Anca is in Europe and Cour is here stateside. And so really happy to have you both here to talk about what it's like to be a woman in the engineering world. So thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah. So before we jump into, talking about being a woman in the engineering world, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then how you ended up at TechSoft 3D, and then what you currently are doing at TechSoft 3D. And Anca, why don't you go first?
Sure. I'm the Global DevOps Manager at TechSoft 3D with more than 20 years of experience in the software development. I started in the software programming as a Java developer, and throughout the years, I advanced to being a tech lead, dev manager, cloud architect, DevOps manager, and here I am at TechSoft as the Global DevOps Manager.
Awesome. And Cour?
Yes. So I am a developer learning engineer. So I work with our learning team, which is basically focused on any kind of learning content, software documentation for our product, newer learning content for the general public, stuff like that. I started at TechSoft. It'll be a year in September. However, my background started in telecommunications and radio and TV. I wasn't a huge fan of what I was experiencing. It was about 4.5 years in the professional community as well as in school. Decided to change it up, went for physics. I was graduating last year. I actually started as a software developer for a local company here in Florida. And at the same time had applied to TechSoft. I actually thought it was a scam because it sounded too good to be true. And for like the first 2 interviews, I was very reluctant. Ended up leaving my software developer position after a month to join TechSoft, and the rest is history.
That's so funny. I like the old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But no, it's a diamond in the rough, I would say. It's a unique environment, and we're going to get to that for sure. So talk a little bit about, when you first got into the tech world, and, what that was like and how things have changed for you now, right? I imagine it's completely different, hopefully a lot better. So if you want to just talk a little bit about how the evolution has happened.
Right. So let's say 20 years ago, the landscape and the work environment was totally different, especially for women in IT. Women had to work a lot harder and they had to prove themselves to be like good engineers. But I feel that today it's a lot better for women in engineering. These younger generations have more advanced tools and technology in their hands, which brings them more flexibility, right, across many fields. Engineering being one of them, the opportunities and possibilities are endless for women. So I think things have improved a lot through the years.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, building off of what Anca said, I've heard stories and different experiences from others, of not just women, but also, other minority groups that aren't the general cis white man in technology. And I've personally, having gone through schooling recently, I've definitely seen an improvement. I agree with that completely. I do think that there's newer challenges that we face today than women may have 20 years ago. Part of it being just, wanting to be competitive with one another, because despite the advances, we still aren't a majority or as equality based, I would say, in some aspects, at least in, my personal experience from what I've noticed. And so we can see each other kind of as competition rather than trying to build each other up. So I think we face newer challenges, but we do have like Anca referred to, a different generation brings different values and different perspective. And it's definitely helped, but there's still progress to be made, I think.
Right. I will also add that the flexible schedule and the remote work brings an advantage to women today because it gives us the means to balance work and education with family life more efficiently and more simply. So this
Completely
is,
agree.
I think, this is a huge advantage.
Yeah, I can agree 100% with that. Just from my own personal experience, it definitely helps with that. But I'd like to go back to something that Cour brought up, because I sometimes I find that the competition aspect exists in lots of fields, not just tech. And so, Anca, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that as well, but is there, I don't know, is there a time where this has happened, or have you found what's a good way around it? It's so, for example, even if it's whether it's another woman or not, and somebody either has a miscommunication or there's an issue, instead of responding to the negativity with more negativity, hey, we're all on the same team here. There's room for all of us. Like, how can we help each other as opposed to try and outdo each other? Has there been have you dealt with those situations, and how have you kind of smoothed that over? And I ask about the situation because if there are any women listening to this and they have found themselves in similar situations, maybe they can learn from this and take this approach to make it better rather than continuing on with this contentious situation with another woman in the field.
Well, I think I experienced that in the past, a few years, but many years ago, actually, when there were a few women in the IT, right, in engineering. Today, the more women join the field, I think it's easier and easier, right, to have a better mentality, right, in supporting each other, working together, finding solutions. So it's more organic in a way today. Right. And as for how to do this, I think it's good to foster good relationships, right, with the women in our circle, to support and to educate each other, to help and learn always something new, invest in skills. So it's all bringing women together to kind of go in the direction.
Great. Cour, you want to add anything to that?
Honestly, 100% agreed with that. Fostering that connection. I mean, you can recognize, right, when you're entering a new environment or someone else is entering your current environment that may be new, and you may sense tension or maybe dislike or hesitancy, because that's usually how you kind of anticipate or can feel for these occurrences, not necessarily between you and another female or somebody else that's, again, not a cis white man, but if anybody that's a different background than you. I think the biggest thing is, like Anca said, reach out, foster those relationships, make your intents known, because you can always respect someone even if you don't like them as a person. You're not going to get along with everybody. That's just blind optimism. But I do think that there is a difference between respecting somebody in a professional environment and making sure that you're still there for them. You don't have to be their best friend at the end of the day and go out for drinks with them after work, but just acknowledging that, hey, we're here to get our job done, yes, but to also be there for each other. I mean, it's at the end of the day, you should be happy in what you do, even if it's not the easiest thing, I guess is the best way to put it.
No, 100%. And so generally, what do you feel women bring to the developer and engineering world, in these environments that had historically been so male dominated, but now there are many more women? And what do you feel women have brought to the table?
Yeah, if I may start, women are typically excellent communicators and collaborators, right? They work well in bringing teams together, finding solutions. So this is where I think women bring a unique perspective. They have some of the core components of the emotional intelligence, like empathy, social skills. So with a different mindset, women tend to naturally have the soft skills that the engineering needs to advance and to find solutions and to solve problems. So I think this is where women they bring this unique perspective to the table.
Yeah, completely. Again, 100% with Anca. I think that's how this entire thing is going to go, is me just saying, yes, Anca is 100%
Maybe we
right.
should
Because
start. Yeah.
I know our experiences are very similar, but
Mhm.
I mean, at the end of the day, when we're coming into a professional environment, a lot of us deal with, more feminine based things, you know, periods, childcare, raising a family on top of working, right? Because 50 years ago, women were expected to stay home and care for the household, And so to have that now, what you bring to the table or bring to a professional environment per se as a woman, um, it's it's not just in a I'm trying to think of the right words. It's not just in a connected point of view. I would say it's not just, oh, let's just make connections. I think the empathy point is really important
Mhm.
because that connects beyond what you can do at home. It connects more into just fostering a network, like we were talking about before, creating, safe and wholesome environments. Because previously it was, they can describe these tech environments as a dog eat dog world, something that's constantly
Mhm.
a competition. And I don't want that. I'm not saying let's not be
Right.
progressive and move forward, and tech's evolving. It's always going to be one tech versus another. But within my company environment and culture, I want to have that empathetic relationship. I want to understand why people do what they do, because at the end of the day, that's just going to help us move forward. So I think honestly what Anka was saying about having that different perspective, that empathetic viewpoint, it's incredibly important to stress, because everybody, doesn't matter who you are, you're going to bring your own viewpoints and your own experiences to the table. And you can say all that you want to separate, work life and home life, but that's going to bleed together, especially now that we are
Sure.
working from home more. It's hard to create
Mhm.
those barriers, right? So
Right.
that's what you're going to start seeing more and more in this moving forward kind of work from home culture, is how those at home experiences are going to change who you are professionally.
Or you made some good points about some things like it's not solely to the work environment, to the companies, to force relationship, encourage women. I think it also comes down to teachers, right? To encourage girls in school, to
Oh,
educating
Right.
parents
100%.
at home, right? To play their part, because this will have a huge impact on girls, right? They grow up to believe that they can do and learn anything, any disciplines, and then they will pursue a career in that direction. So I
Exactly.
think it starts at home, then continues in school, and then at the workplace.
So this is a good transition to one or both. I have two other questions. One, we could talk about the workplace, because TechSoft 3D, as we've talked before we started recording, it's a unique environment, right? I've been in the tech world for almost 25 years, and I can truly say it's probably one of the most, feels like a family work culture that I've ever experienced in another company. But then we also want to talk about what kind of advice we would give to other women and young women who are getting into the tech field, right? So, maybe let's talk about TechSoft first, because I think that will, part of that will actually be one of the bits of advice that we give, right? As far as like choosing where you work. So talk a little bit about your experience at TechSoft and how it has been different than where you've worked in other places.
Or would you like to go first?
Sure. So, like I mentioned before, I was in a previous industry prior to switching to a STEM based field. And so I did experience quite a few professional, let's say, setbacks as a woman, as a disabled LGBTQ woman. And it's honestly so different here at TechSoft, and it's inclusive, and it's not inclusive for inclusive sake. I know we've mentioned that before in previous conversations, Anka. They're inclusive here because they care, and to have that genuine concern, not just as a woman, but just as somebody that's a family member basically here. It's somebody that's involved. It's such a different, wholesome, healthy working environment than what I've
Mhm.
ever experienced before. I've been in some incredibly toxic and solely company driven environments, that this is such a drastically different and greatly improved experience for me. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, yay, like I don't mind putting in overtime. I don't mind reaching out to people or to make meetings or to go to work or to do anything like this. I'm hanging out with these people despite being states away and only meeting them once or twice. I have one of my friends, Gabe, in up in a couple states up north. He's coming to my my wedding at the end of July. I know I said I'm married, but we never had a wedding because of COVID. So like I'm gonna be like hanging out with people outside of the workplace environment that we have. And it's just it's such a connected and wholesome environment that I cannot stress enough that I love.
Right. I also believe that TechSoft, the inclusive environment, it is an inclusive environment. Women are recognized from the get-go. They have a chance to contribute, to bring their skills to the table, and they are heard and seen. So this is very, very important. They are not being ignored or belittled in any way. So this is really nice to have, at the workplace.
Right. And I will say it's a very deliberate, inclusive culture, right? It's not like it just sort of happened that way. It certainly comes from the top. Ron Fritz, the CEO, and Tyler Barnes, the president. They're very deliberate in how they ensure that inclusivity, right? And that everyone has a voice, how they run their all company meetings, how they manage down and encourage their managers to manage their teams, that sort of thing. We're coming off of Juneteenth, the Juneteenth holiday, and TechSoft has, I think, for the past 4 years at least, has not just given the employees the day off that day, but it has established what we're calling Day of Equality, and encourages everybody to go and give back to the community in some way. That could be cleaning up a beach, it could be volunteering at a center, it could be handing out supplies to the homeless, whatever you feel is most needed in your community. You can go do that, and which is really important because, as you both have said, there's a lot of remote work from home. So sometimes you're the only person in your area that you're working with. And so, but it gives you license to go and do whatever type of volunteer work that you feel is necessary, which is amazing. So I think this is an aspect that truly permeates the TechSoft 3D culture. And it is very unique in that regard, I would say. So Cour, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I was just going to say, I completely agree with you 100% about, like you're saying, from the top down. I did mention this previously. I forgot to mention it in this question, but the company culture is so ingrained here, and it comes from the beginning of what Ron and now Tyler are instilling in the just initial, 4, 5, 6 interviews. And it is a lot, but we make sure that people fit here, that they don't anybody can do these jobs. Anybody can learn how to write a line of code. Anybody can do an HR job, can do this, assuming they have common sense, right? But that's a different question. But beyond that, making sure that they're going to be someone that not just fits the mold, because we don't want, robotic people. We want people that have their own style of doing things, different backgrounds, different beliefs. But even when I met Ron and Tyler for the first time back in our meetup at the beginning of this year, I felt heard. Like, even though I'm a newer person in this industry, and at least within this company, I've had a voice since the start. It's not been something I felt like has been squashed or has meant less than someone who's been here for 10, 20 years. What we're going on our 26th, 27th year as a company. And beyond that, like just going through with HR, for example, the benefits to women that we offer. I actually started, I'm not going to lie, I started crying because there are certain things that we offer. And when Angie was going over some of this, I was like, you guys offer this to us, like just as a normal thing. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is out of the professional culture that I've experienced. This is not normal. I've heard of it. It's more of like one of those mythological things, but just to agree with you, like the culture is so ingrained from Ron and Tyler and from those who have established this company value that I can see it all the way down to my bosses now and who I work with, my colleagues. I don't feel oppressed, in the normal sense of, because I'm a woman, it doesn't matter kind of thing, or it means any less. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, there's something to be said for continuity of leadership, because Ron has been at the company since he's a founder, right? And so he's been able to shape this company culture from day one. And he's done a phenomenal job, and it's really shown. And because everybody is so appreciative of it, they continue it, right? So I think even if Ron left at this point, that culture would continue because everyone is just so happy to be there that let's keep it going. Let's not ruin a good thing, right? So, all right. So to wrap it up, there are lots of women and young women and girls, as we mentioned in school, thinking about careers in the tech world, whether they're engineering, coding, software development, what have you. What would be some of your advice to those women and girls that are, embarking on this journey today? And they, the challenges are different, as we recognized in the beginning. So it's not like it's going to be, smooth sailing the whole way. There are going to be some challenges. So what would be your advice to those girls starting their path?
Cour, would you like to start?
Sure. So I would say one thing that I think we can all agree on is be confident in what you're doing. I mean, you don't have to start in tech. So that doesn't mean like you could have a career and be in something for 40 years. And if you want to change your mind, that's okay. Be confident in what you want to do. It's okay to change your mind. It's as long as you're doing what you love when you love to do it, there's nothing wrong with that. Anybody can go into tech. It's not, I mean, it's a lot of work. I'm not going to lie, but if it's something that you're passionate about and something that you want to learn, don't be afraid. Don't give up just because of one bad review or one bad boss or even a string of bad jobs, because things can get better and things will get better. And I also think another really important thing is to be impactful in what you say. That is something that has been taught to me since I've started here. And by being impactful, I mean, I know like we like to talk, right? Like if I'm having a conversation with Anca, we were talking about the weather the other day. That's great. But you also need to know your audience and when you're speaking. So if you're in a meeting and you don't want to be seen as the person that's too aggressive or too assertive, make sure you're getting your points known early across. So that way you're not getting shoved to the back. And I know that can sound a little confusing, but it means like A, B, C, this is why I want to do this for this reason, this project can have this purpose. So that way you're not just saying, well, I had this idea the other day, because that can be seen as more of a feminine thing of where we like to talk. And I hate that analogy so much, but I'm not going to lie. My husband says I talk too much. So you never know. But that's why I say, like, be impactful in what you say and make sure you foster those connections, find a mentor, find those connections in the workplace where you can uplift yourself.
Right. This is very important. Yeah. And, toxic relationships can happen at home, can happen at workplace, can happen everywhere. Right. So we need to have that healthy communication and openness, right? When we talk about things. And I totally agree. We need to build and maintain a high level of confidence in what we do, in how we present ourselves, how we carry ourselves in the work we do. No matter what people think, you don't always please everyone, but at the end of the day, make sure that you've put forward the best version of yourself. Every day, learn something new, invest in a skill, put your mind and passion into something, and you will succeed.
Right. Yeah. And I think in our discussion before we started recording, we had also talked about doing your due diligence in choosing where to work. Yes. I mean, yes, you're going to apply to a lot of different companies, and maybe the one that you really, really wanted you didn't get it. So to your point, Cour, you may have to have a few not so great jobs before you get the one you want. But so as thinking back to the time when you were interviewing at TechSoft, what were some of the things you were looking for in a company that ultimately led you to choose TechSoft?
Anca, do you want to go first?
Sure. At that point, I was moving continents again. So for me, I was looking around. I was not in a rush. I took my time. To me, doing my research about the company is very important to know not only about what they're doing, but also what's the culture, what is the mentality, right? Technology aside. So when I saw this the job advertisement, what I liked was that it was a multi-international company, right? So with different skills, with different positions all over the world. And this attracted me because I said, okay, this is something where I could put my skills to, right? I could help with this because I've had that multi-international experience before. So this is something that really attracted me to the job. And also the title was not as important title as what is behind that, right? The nature of the work, the impact I could bring. So I always think what I could bring to the table and what I also can gain, what kind of experience I gain from that, right? Because it has to go both ways.
Right.
So this was very important to me.
Okay.
So I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was very terrified of just not having a job in general when I was graduating because I was working student jobs. I had worked full time previously and realized it wasn't a good fit for me between, my disability and being in school full time. I was traveling about an hour and a half one way, 2 hours to go to school every day. Among, working basically full time. So it was a lot of challenge. So at the time I was just looking for something to pay the bills. My husband had just recently lost his job. So we were kind of in a tight bind. But with that being said, I had put in a bunch of applications. TechSoft just happened to be one of them. I came across and I was like, oh, I'll never hear back on this. And it was such a shock when they reached out to me. I actually this is probably a story for another time, but I actually missed the first email that Angie sent out to me. And she wrote me back. She wrote me back. And then for the second interview, she said, oh yeah, William, is going to be following up with you. I missed his email too. It was going to junk. And so they reached out to me continuously. And I'm so, so grateful that they did. But beyond just needing a job at the time, because the market is very competitive right now, it's very hard to find a job that not only meets your mental and emotional needs, but just financially, it's a very difficult time. And so with that being said, like Anca said, the culture values, the versatility and basically the company culture that they instilled in me from just the interviews, just the fact that they genuinely love what they did. It didn't seem cheesy. It seemed honest. And I didn't even really understand the job title or what entailed it because I had done learning content before through the physics department, and I had CAD background, but we're a very niche company, but we service a wide industry of markets. And so I didn't really know what I was looking for. And I just happened to find it. It was just a happenstance that ended up being amazing because I was looking for aerospace. I'm an astrophysicist by nature. So to find to find this opportunity was just, I don't know. It was one of a kind. Like I'm honestly so lucky to have found it. I really love what I do.
But this proves another point, and because even if we are from different generations, we had such a good experience at TechSoft, right? So we have that, even if our generations are different, expectations, challenges, opportunities are different, it was so inclusive in a way, like it catered for both of us, all generations, right? So we found this good place to work that takes care of all this. So
yes. And I think building on that, it's not just important to find somewhere that you love because, I know we're saying great things about TechSoft, and I will live, breathe, and die that TechSoft is a great company. But I also think it's important to note that not every company is perfect and not every company will always meet your needs. There are always going to be friction and stuff that you're going to face. Finding somewhere that you can feel like the growth or progress can be made is incredibly, incredibly important. Because if I do run into issues, and I'm not saying like I definitely have here, like it's been almost a year, right? But having the ability to change and wanting to change, and like Anca and I had mentioned before, not inclusivity for inclusivity's sake. It's the same thing. I don't want people to say, what's Cour's opinion just because they want to have that woman-based view. I want them to genuinely care. And that's what I feel like at the end of the day is TechSoft. It's not just a company.
And in
Agreed.
terms of sorry, Angela.
No, go ahead.
In terms of advice, I think, Angela, you were asking like what would the advice we give women, right? Or I think that at the end of the day, it might not be a great experience for everyone, right? But as long as
That's a good point.
yeah, as long as at the end of the day, you put the best version of yourself out there, you would have learned at the end of the day something from this experience, right? And could be the stepping stone for something better for you, right? So it's very important to have this mindset, that you have when you join TechSoft.
Yeah, the learning from every experience, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
Even the bad ones, right? Yeah, super important.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, the positive TechSoft note, I couldn't think of a better way to wrap up the podcast. Clearly, the Ron and leadership have created a great environment. We could use this as a little bit of a recruiting tool, but a great conversation to honor International Women in Engineering Day. So thank you both for your time today. This has been a great conversation, and wish you the best of continued success, whether it be at TechSoft or wherever else you may end up in your career. So thank you very much.
Thank you too. Our pleasure.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's been such an amazing opportunity and pleasure to talk with you guys today about this.
Thank you for joining us on the Beyond 3D podcast, hosted by TechSoft 3D. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave us a review, or subscribe on SoundCloud. To listen to past episodes or learn more about TechSoft 3D, visit www.techsoft3d.com/blog. Send us comments and suggestions at info@techsoft3d.com. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you'll join us again on the next episode of Beyond 3D.